My uncle borrowed $3,000 from me and swore he'd pay me back. Then he ghosted me. He did this 3 more times over 4 years, taking $14,000 total. I stayed quiet and documented everything. Then his kidneys failed and I was the only match in the entire family. When he begged me to donate, I said one sentence that made everyone in that hospital room go completely silent. My name is Kyle Brennan, I'm 33 years old, and this is the story of how my Uncle Richard taught me that blood doesn't always mean family. Uncle Richard was my dad's younger brother, the charming screw-up who could talk his way out of anything. Good stories, better excuses, always someone else's fault. The family loved him anyway because he was funny and our grandmother's favorite. My dad died when I was 19. Heart attack, no warning, gone. Uncle Richard showed up at the funeral in an expensive suit, told me I was the man of the house now, then disappeared for 6 years. He called me in March 2019, right after I'd landed my first real job as a software engineer in Austin. I was 25, finally making decent money, still paying off student loans. Kyle, buddy, it's your Uncle Rick. Listen, I'm in a tight spot. I need to borrow $3,000 for a business opportunity. 60 days, I'll pay you back with interest. Your dad would have helped me, you know he would. There it was. Using my dead father to guilt me into giving him money. I sent it the next day. By May, he'd stopped answering my calls. By June, I accepted I'd never see that money again. I didn't tell anyone. Just added his name to my mental list of people I couldn't trust. 14 months later, October 2020, he called again. I know I still owe you, and I'm sorry, things went sideways. But my car died and I need $4,000 for a replacement, or I can't work. I'll pay back everything by Christmas. I swear on my mother's grave. His mother had been dead 3 years. He was literally swearing on her grave. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted to believe people could change. Maybe I was still that 19-year-old kid who'd lost his dad. Maybe I was just stupid. $4,000 sent. Christmas came and went. By spring, he blocked my number. I started keeping records. Screenshots, bank transfers, broken promises. A folder on my computer labeled Uncle Richard, with everything documented. July 2021, he unblocked my number. Emergency. Getting evicted. Need $3,500 for first and last month's rent. I've got a vintage Rolex for collateral, worth $8,000. Sign an IOU, if I don't pay, the watch is yours. I sent the money. Never saw the watch. He stopped responding within a week. March 2022, 4 years after the first loan, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. Thinner, desperate, crying. I need $2,500. Bad people. Life or death. Please, Kyle. Your dad would help me. Something in me snapped. My dad's been dead 13 years and you've used his memory to steal from me 3 times. Mention him again and I'm closing this door forever. I gave him the money with one condition, a signed, witness document stating he owed me $13,500 total, with a payment plan starting next month. He signed it. Promised to pay $100 monthly starting April. April came. Nothing. May, June, July. Silence. In August 2022, I sent the document to my mom and sister with a simple message. This is what Uncle Richard has been doing. The family erupted. Uncle Richard called me screaming about betrayal. I hung up and blocked his number. 2 years passed. I got promoted twice, started dating Rachel, wrote off the money as an expensive lesson. Uncle Richard became a story I tell friends about why you never lend money to family. Then September 2024, my phone rang. Unknown Texas number. Is this Kyle Brennan? This is Dr. Patricia Morrison from Austin General Hospital. I'm calling about Richard Brennan. You're listed as his emergency contact. My stomach dropped. What happened? Mr. Brennan was admitted 3 days ago in acute kidney failure. His kidneys are functioning at 15%. He needs dialysis and eventually a transplant. He's been asking for you. I walked into that hospital room the next afternoon. Uncle Richard was hooked up to machines, looking 20 years older than I remembered. Kyle, he whispered. You came. Doctor called. Said you were sick? Dying. Kidneys are shot. They're testing the family for transplant matches. He paused, watching me carefully. I'm sorry. For everything. The money, the lies, all of it. I was a terrible uncle. Your dad would be ashamed of me. I didn't respond. Just stood there, looking at this man who'd stolen from me, manipulated me, used my father's memory against me. I know I don't deserve anything from you. He continued. But I'm hoping maybe you could find it in your heart to forgive me. To help me get through this. Before I could answer, Dr. Morrison entered with a tablet and a grim expression. Mr. Brennan, we've completed the family compatibility testing. She glanced at me, then back at Richard. Your sister isn't a match. Your cousin isn't a match. We tested everyone we could reach. She paused. Kyle is a perfect match. 6 out of 6 markers. It's remarkable, actually. The room went very quiet. Richard's eyes filled with tears. Kyle. Please. I know I don't deserve to ask, but you're the only one who can save my life. Please. I looked at him. Then at the doctor. Then back at Richard. I need some time to think about this, I said, and walked out of the room. In the hallway, my phone was already ringing. My mom. Kyle, the hospital called me. They said you're a match. You have to do this. He's family. He's your father's brother. Mom, do you know how much money he stole from me? That's in the past. This is life or death. I hung up. My sister called next. Then my aunt. Then Richard's ex-wife. Everyone with the same message. You have to save him. He's family. It's the right thing to do. Nobody mentioned the $14,000. Nobody mentioned the lies. Nobody mentioned how he'd used my dead father's memory to manipulate me for years. Over the next week, the pressure mounted. Family members I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly calling, texting, showing up at my apartment. Richard's friends reached out on social media. Even my grandmother's old church group got involved. How can you let your uncle die over money? Your father would be so disappointed in you. This is what family does for each other. Rachel was the only one who didn't pressure me. It's your body, your choice, she said simply. Whatever you decide, I support you. I spent a week researching kidney donation. The surgery, the recovery, the risks. Living with one kidney meant lifestyle changes, medical monitoring for life, potential complications. It wasn't a simple decision. But the real question wasn't medical. It was moral. Did this man, who'd lied to me repeatedly, who'd stolen from me, who'd manipulated me using my dead father's memory, deserve this from me? I went back to the hospital on a Saturday morning. The family was there, gathered in Richard's room like it was a vigil. My mom, my sister, Richard's ex-wife Karen, his daughter from his first marriage, my Aunt Linda. They all looked at me when I walked in. Hopeful, expectant, already assuming I'd say yes because that's what good people do. Richard was awake, looking frail and scared. Kyle, he said. Thank you for coming back. Have you thought about it? About the donation? Everyone leaned in, waiting. I looked around the room at all these people who'd stayed silent while Richard manipulated me, who never asked about the money, who only cared now because it was convenient. I've thought about it a lot, I said. And I have some questions first. The room shifted. Uncomfortable glances between family members. My mom's smile faltered slightly. Questions? Richard said weakly. Of course, anything. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd labeled Uncle Richard, 2 years ago. Months of screenshots, bank transfers, broken promises, all organized by date. First question, I said, looking directly at him. Do you remember how much money you borrowed from me over the past 5 years? Richard's face went pale. Kyle, I don't think now is the time. Humor me. How much? He glanced at my mom, then back to me. I don't know exactly. A few thousand? $13,500, I said clearly. March 2019, 3,000. October 2020, 4,000. July 2021, 3,500. March 2022, 2,500. You promised to pay back every single loan. You signed a legal document for the last one. I turned my phone to show the signed IOU to everyone in the room. How much have you paid back? Silence. 0. I answered for him. Not $1. Not one apology until you needed something from me. My Aunt Linda spoke up. Kyle, honey, we understand you're upset about the money, but this is different. This is his life. You're right, Aunt Linda. It is different. When it was my money, my trust, my relationship with my dead father being used to manipulate me, nobody cared. But now that he needs something from me, suddenly everyone has an opinion. My sister Emily touched my arm. Kyle, come on. You're not actually going to let him die over this. I'm not letting him die. I'm asking questions. Second question, Uncle Richard. When you borrowed that first $3,000, what did you actually use it for? Richard closed his eyes. I told you, business opportunity. That's what you said. What was the truth? Kyle, please. The truth, or I walk out right now and you never see me again. Dr. Morrison looked like she wanted to intervene but stayed quiet, watching this family drama unfold in her hospital. Richard took a shaky breath. Gambling debt. I owed some guys from a poker game. I was going to pay you back, I really was, but then I had some bad luck and... The second loan. I interrupted. $4,000 for a car. Truth? Rent. I was 3 months behind. And some of it went to, trying to win back what I'd lost. My mom made a small sound of dismay. She hadn't known any of this. The third loan. I continued. $3,500 with the Rolex as collateral. Where's the watch, Uncle Richard? I never had it. He admitted. It was my dad's, but I sold it years ago. I just found a picture online. Karen, his ex-wife, put her hand over her mouth. Richard, oh my God. And the fourth loan? The life or death situation with bad people? There were no bad people, he said quietly. I just needed the money. For bills. For gambling. For everything I'd screwed up. I looked around the room. My mom was crying. Emily looked shocked. Aunt Linda was staring at her brother like she'd never seen him before. So just to be clear, I said, you lied to me 4 times, stole $13,500 from me using my dead father's memory as leverage, and the only reason anyone in this family knows about it is because I finally told them 2 years ago. Is that accurate? Yes, Richard whispered. And now you want me to give you a kidney? Kyle, I know I don't deserve it. You're right. You don't. I looked at my mom. And everyone in this room who's been calling me, pressuring me, telling me what Dad would want, where were you when Uncle Richard was stealing from me? Where was the family intervention then? My mom wiped her eyes. We didn't know, Kyle. If we'd known. I told you 2 years ago. I sent you the document. You said we'd deal with it later, that it was between me and Richard. But now that you need something from me, suddenly it matters. That's not fair, Emily said. Isn't it? Think about it, Em. If Uncle Richard didn't need a kidney right now, would any of you be here? Would anyone care that he stole from me? Or would it still be something we don't talk about at family gatherings? Nobody answered. I turned back to Richard. Third question. Why did you list me as your emergency contact? He looked confused. What? You have a daughter. An ex-wife. A sister. A whole family. Why was I the emergency contact when we haven't spoken in 2 years? Richard's eyes welled up. Because I knew if anything happened to me, you'd come. Even after everything I did, I knew you'd show up. You're a good person, Kyle. Better than me. Better than I ever was. So you were counting on my decency. The same decency you exploited for 5 years. I deserve that. Yes, you do. I took a breath. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to leave this hospital and think about whether I want to donate my kidney. Not because you're family. Not because of what Dad would want. But because it's my body and my choice and I get to decide what I do with it. Kyle. My mom started. Mom, stop. Everyone stop. I'm 33 years old. I don't need your permission or your approval. Uncle Richard made his choices for 5 years. Now I get to make mine. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. One more thing. If I do this, and that's a big if, there will be conditions. Legal conditions. Written, notarized, non-negotiable. So everyone in this room needs to decide right now if you actually care about saving his life, or if you just want me to do it so you don't have to feel guilty. I left before anyone could respond. In the parking lot, Rachel was waiting in her car. She'd driven separately, knowing I might need an exit strategy. How'd it go? She asked as I got in. I basically told my entire family that I might let my uncle die. Did you actually say that? No. But that's what they heard. I leaned back in the seat. Am I a terrible person? For not immediately agreeing to give an organ to someone who stole from you and lied to you for years? No, Kyle. You're not terrible. You're human. My mom thinks I'm punishing him. Are you? I thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of being the person who has to be the bigger person all the time. Rachel drove us to her apartment. We ordered takeout, and I spent the evening researching kidney donation from every angle I could think of. Medical risks, recovery time, long-term effects, legal rights, ethics. The ethics were complicated. On one hand, I had the power to save someone's life. That's not a small thing. On the other hand, someone had repeatedly betrayed my trust, stolen from me, and only valued me when I could give him something. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts from family members, some supportive, most accusatory. Mom, I raised you better than this. Emily, I can't believe you're seriously considering this. He's dying. And Linda, your father would be heartbroken. But there were a few different ones too. Karen, Richard's ex. I understand if you say no. I lived with his lies for 15 years. You don't owe him anything. My cousin Mike. Dude, your body, your choice. Don't let them guilt you. And one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Richard's daughter, Amanda. We've never met. My dad was a terrible father, and I'm guessing a terrible uncle too. Whatever you decide, I get it. I texted Amanda back. Thank you. That means a lot. She responded immediately. He owes me $22,000 in child support he never paid. I have zero moral authority to tell you what to do, but I figured you should know you're not the only one he screwed over. $22,000 in unpaid child support. On top of the $13,500 he stole from me. Richard owed his own family over $35,000 in combined debts. Rachel read over my shoulder. Jesus. Yeah. What are you going to do? I honestly don't know. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about my dad. He'd been a good man, honest, hardworking, the kind of person who'd give you the shirt off his back. Would he want me to save his brother? Or would he be angry that Richard had used his memory to manipulate his son? By morning, I'd made a decision, not about the kidney, but about what I needed to do next. I called Dr. Morrison. I want to meet with you privately. No family. I have questions about the medical side of this. We met that afternoon in her office. She laid out everything: the surgery, the recovery, the risks, the statistics on living donors, the lifestyle changes, the regular monitoring I need for the rest of my life. What's his prognosis if he doesn't get a transplant? I asked. Dialysis can keep him alive for years, potentially. But the quality of life decreases significantly. And he'd be on the transplant waiting list, though given his age and health history, he's not high priority. Health history? She hesitated. I probably shouldn't share this, but since you're considering a donation, you should know. Richard has liver damage consistent with chronic alcohol abuse. He's had multiple emergency room visits for alcohol-related incidents. His kidney failure is partially self-inflicted. Of course it was. If I donate, what are the chances the transplant fails due to his lifestyle? If he continues drinking, very high. We'd require him to complete an addiction program and maintain sobriety for at least 6 months before we'd even schedule the surgery. So even if I agreed, it wasn't happening immediately. Richard would have to prove he could stay sober. One more question, I said. If I say no, will the family have access to that information? Will they know I refused? That's completely confidential. It's your medical decision and your privacy. I could say no and nobody would know. I could walk away and let Richard face the consequences of his choices without the family ever knowing I'd refused. But that felt like taking the easy way out. I thanked Dr. Morrison and left her office with the clarity I hadn't had before. I was going to make this decision on my terms, with my conditions, and the family was going to have to accept it or not. I called a family meeting for Sunday afternoon at my apartment. Mom, Emily, Aunt Linda, Karen, and Amanda, Richard's daughter I'd never met. Richard wasn't invited. They arrived looking nervous, crowding into my small living room. Rachel made coffee and excused herself. I've made a decision about the kidney donation, I started. But first, you all need to hear something. I looked at Amanda. I found out yesterday that Uncle Richard owes you $22,000 in child support. That's $35,000 he's stolen from his own family. Amanda nodded. $38,000, actually. And he hasn't seen me in 6 years. Not for my graduation, my wedding, nothing. My mom looked shocked. Aunt Linda started crying. Everyone knew Richard had problems, I said. But nobody did anything because it was easier to enable him and hope he'd figure it out. That's not fair. My mom protested. Did you actually help him? Or just give him money and tell him to do better next time? Silence. Richard's kidney failure is partially from chronic alcohol abuse. Even if I donate, he needs to complete addiction treatment and stay sober for 6 months before they'll do the surgery. If he drinks after the transplant, the kidney will likely fail. Karen spoke up. I was married to Richard for 12 years. I watched him promise to quit drinking at least 20 times. He'd start treatment programs, never finished. Always had an excuse. I pulled out a document and handed copies to everyone. If I donate, Richard signs this contract. Legally binding. My mom read aloud. Richard Brennan agrees to complete a 90-day inpatient addiction treatment program. Attend AA meetings 3 times weekly for 2 years. Submit to random drug and alcohol testing. Repay Kyle Brennan $13,500 at $100 per month starting 6 months post-surgery. She looked up. Kyle, this is non-negotiable. Every single item. If he violates any term, I can sue him for the full amount plus medical costs. You can't be serious, Aunt Linda said. I'm completely serious. You want me to give him an organ? He proves he's serious about changing. Amanda was reading carefully. There's a clause about family therapy and written apologies. 6 months of therapy with anyone he owes money to. Written apologies delivered in person, with a therapist present. I don't want his money, Amanda said quietly. I just want him to acknowledge what he did and actually mean it. My mom set down the contract. This feels cruel. Does it? Or is this the first time anyone's held Richard accountable? I looked at each of them. I'm willing to save his life. But I'm not willing to watch him waste the gift. Karen nodded. When I divorced him, my therapist said I couldn't love him into being better. This contract makes him prove he wants it. I support it, Amanda said. 100%. My mom was quiet for a long moment. Your father would be proud of you. For standing up for yourself, for setting boundaries. I'm sorry I didn't support you when Richard was stealing from you. Thanks, Mom. We talked for another hour. By the end, everyone except Aunt Linda was on board. The next morning, I went to the hospital alone. Richard was awake, looking better. Kyle, he said. I didn't think you'd come back. I've made a decision about the donation. I handed him the contract. I'll do it. Under specific conditions. I watched his face as he read. Hope turned to confusion, then understanding, then something that might have been respect. This is intense, he said finally. Yes. You really want me to do all this? I want you to prove you're serious about living. I'm not giving you a kidney so you can waste it. If I do this, you do the work. He read through it again slower. When he got to the apology clause, his hands shook. I have to apologize to Amanda in person? And mean it. In front of a therapist. Face to face. She hates me. You owe her $38,000 and haven't seen her in 6 years. She has every right. But if you want my kidney, you face what you've done. Richard looked at me for a long moment. You've become a strong man. Stronger than me. Stronger than your dad, even. Don't. I mean it. Your dad would have given me the kidney and asked for nothing. You're making me earn it. That takes guts. It takes boundaries. He picked up the contract again. If I sign this and mess up, you'll sue me. Yes. What if I can't do it? What if I fail? Then you fail knowing someone gave you a real chance, and you chose not to take it. I leaned forward. But I think you can do it. You're capable of being better. You just have to want it enough. His eyes were wet. Why are you doing this? After everything I did. Because someone has to believe you can change. And I'd rather set the terms than watch you waste away while everyone pretends you're a victim. Richard took a deep breath, picked up the pen on his bedside table, and signed the contract. The surgery was scheduled for 6 months later, pending Richard's completion of the treatment program. He entered an inpatient facility 2 weeks after signing the contract, and for the first time in my memory, he actually followed through. I got weekly updates from his counselor, per the contract terms. Richard was attending groups, doing the work, facing his demons. It wasn't pretty. His counselor told me he'd broken down in therapy multiple times, finally confronting decades of avoidance and self-destruction. Amanda agreed to meet with him in month 3. I offered to be there for support, but she wanted to do it alone. She called me afterward, voice shaky. He apologized, she said. Really apologized. Not the usual Richard sorry where he makes excuses. He took full responsibility. He cried. I cried. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. How do you feel? I asked. Lighter. Like I'd been carrying this weight my whole life and someone finally acknowledged it was there. Richard completed the 90-day program. The day he graduated, he called me. Kyle, I did it. 90 days sober. First time in 20 years I've made it this long. I'm proud of you. I said and meant it. I want to start the family therapy. With you. If you're still willing. We started therapy in month 4. Sitting across from Richard in that counselor's office, watching him actually take accountability for his actions, was surreal. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame circumstances. He owned what he'd done. I used your father's memory as a weapon, he said during our 3rd session. Your dad was the best person I knew, and I twisted that to manipulate you. That's unforgivable. But you're asking me to forgive you anyway. I said. No. I'm asking you to let me prove I've changed. Forgiveness, if it comes, that's up to you and it might take years. I just want the chance to be better. The surgery happened in March 2025, exactly 1 year after Richard had signed the contract. The night before, Rachel and I lay in bed talking. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified. Not of the surgery, but of what happens after. What if he relapses? What if this was all for nothing? Then you'll know you gave him every possible chance, and he chose to waste it. But Kyle, from everything you've told me, he's doing the work. He's actually changing. People don't change that fast. Maybe they do when they finally have a real reason to. The surgery went perfectly. They took my kidney at 8 a.m., transplanted it into Richard by noon. When I woke up in recovery, groggy and sore, my mom was there. It worked, she said, crying. The kidney's functioning. You saved his life. I felt relief and fear in equal measure. Recovery was brutal. 6 weeks of limited activity, pain, exhaustion. Richard was in the room next to mine for the first week, and we'd video call each other from our hospital beds, comparing who felt worse. You gave me a piece of yourself, he said one afternoon. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I deserved it. You didn't deserve it, I said honestly. But I gave it to you anyway. Don't waste it. He didn't. A year later, March 2026, I'm sitting in Richard's apartment for his 1-year sobriety celebration. It's small, just family and a few people from his AA group. Amanda's here with her husband. Karen came. My mom baked a cake. Richard stands up to speak, holding his 1-year chip. A year ago, my nephew saved my life. But the real gift wasn't the kidney. It was the contract. He pulls out the worn paper, now framed on his wall. Cal didn't just give me an organ. He gave me accountability. He gave me boundaries. He gave me a reason to finally do the work I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. He looks at me. I've made my first payment. $100 like we agreed. I've got 134 more to go. But I'll make every single one, because that's what accountability looks like. The room applauds. I feel Rachel squeeze my hand. After everyone leaves, Richard and I sit on his balcony. He's drinking coffee. A year ago it would have been whiskey. I looked at my old medical records, he said. Before the transplant, the doctor gave me maybe 5 years on dialysis. You gave me a second chance at life. But more than that, you gave me a chance to be the person I should have been all along. You did the work, not me. You set the terms. That's what I needed. Someone who loved me enough to demand better. I thought about that. About how sometimes love isn't about accepting people as they are, but about believing they can be better and refusing to enable them being less. Have you talked to your sponsor about the gambling? I asked. Every week. I haven't placed a bet in a year. Handed over my finances to a money manager. I can't access anything without approval. It's humiliating and necessary. That's growth. That's survival. He paused. Amanda and I are having dinner next week. Just us. She's considering letting me meet my grandson. I might get to be a grandfather. That's huge. It is. And it only happened because you refused to enable me. Everyone else in my life gave me what I wanted. You gave me what I needed. I stood to leave. Richard walked me to the door. One more thing, he said. I know the contract says I owe you $13,500. But you gave me something worth a lot more than that. You gave me my life back. Thank you. Thank you for not wasting it. Driving home with Rachel, I thought about the past 2 years. About the phone call from the hospital, the family pressure, the contract, the surgery, the recovery, watching Richard actually change. Do you regret it? Rachel asked. No. But I'm glad I did it my way. With conditions. With boundaries. If I'd just given him the kidney because he was family, he might have survived, but he wouldn't have changed. You think the contract made the difference? I think accountability made the difference. The contract was just the tool. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Forgot to mention. Made an extra payment today. Felt good to pay down what I owe. Thanks for believing I could do better. I smiled and put my phone away. The story of my uncle borrowing money and ghosting me 4 times could have ended with bitterness and estrangement. Instead, it ended with boundaries, accountability, and actual change. I didn't save Richard's life by giving him a kidney. I saved it by refusing to enable him, by demanding he prove he wanted to live, by setting terms that forced him to do the work. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to make it easy for them to stay broken. And sometimes, just sometimes, they rise to meet the challenge. Richard did. And that kidney I gave him? He's taking care of it. Because he finally learned to take care of himself first. That's the real happy ending.